All right. We have learned about simple interest this week online. This is the formula for simple interest. I equals P times R times T. I and P are capital because they're a dollar amount. I is the amount of interest. P is the original amount, the principal in the account. R is the rate as a decimal, and T is the time in years. We have looked at a lot of examples where we found the amount of interest and we were given the principal, the rate, and the time. We did not do many examples where we had the interest in two of these things and we're looking for the other. So I'm going to do a few examples on how to find P, how to find R, and how to find T. My first example has some notes on it already. I tried to record this once and my camera froze, so I'm re-recording it. Sorry about that. The question says, Jenna borrowed $5,000 for 3 years and had to pay $1,350 simple interest at the end of that time. What rate of interest did she pay? I already noted that $5,000 is the principal. It's what we started with in the account. 3 years is the time, and I have a little check mark here because this is in years and time needs to be in years in order to use it in our equation. And then I said that the simple interest I was $1,350. That's the other dollar amount. That's what she had to pay. That's the amount of interest at the end. We're searching for R. So we don't know what R will be. That'll stay a variable then. We do know that the amount of interest is 1,350. So instead of I can write 1,350. We know that the principal, or the original amount in the account, was 5,000. So instead of P, I'll write 5,000. And the time that that money sits in the account was 3 years. So instead of T, I'm writing 3. Now this is just an equation that we can solve, and we can solve it for R. So our goal here is to solve for R. The first thing I'm going to do is actually switch R and 3 in the way that I'm multiplying. So I'm just going to rewrite everything. We can do this because of the commutative property of multiplication. All I did was write multiplication signs instead of parentheses. I'm just going to make a note. We switched the order of multiplication. I'm just going to write multi for short. Okay, that means now I can multiply easily 5,003 to get 15,000 times R. On the left side, we still just have that 1,350. Now this is just an equation that you guys know how to solve for R already. To isolate R, we should divide by its coefficient, which is 15,000. We can write our division like fractions. We are doing that because on the right side, 15,000 times R divided by 15,000 would make 1 times R, which leaves us with just R. On the left side, 1,350 divided by 15,000 gets 0.09. Now we know that R is equal to 0.09. I want to point out that R is a decimal, not a percent. To change this to a percent, you'd have to do the opposite of dividing by 100, so you'd multiply by 100, or instead of moving your decimal to the left twice, you'd move it to the right twice. Here's all that work again. That was for finding R, the rate. The next example we'll look at, we'll find the time T. So this is the same situation. We're just going to set up the equation for finding T instead. Jenna borrowed $5,000 at a simple interest rate of 9%. She had to pay $1,350 in simple interest. How long was her loan for? So they have told us that the rate is 9%, but I can't use 9%. I have to change that to a decimal. To change 9% as a decimal, I'm rewriting the number. This doesn't look like it has a decimal, which means the decimal's at the end. To change a percent to a decimal, we move the decimal, 2 places to the right. Fill that in with a 0. Here's my new decimal, get rid of the old one. So R is 0.09. Okay. We're looking for the time here. So that's where I put my question mark. We have borrowed $5,000, so that's the original amount in our account, which means that's the principal. And then at the end, we're paying an extra $1,350. Since that's the extra stuff, it's the interest, the amount of interest, and that tells you that right there as well. So now I can make my equation, substitute in my equation. The equation is I equals P times the rate times the time in years. The interest amount was $1,350. This is equal to the principal. Instead of P, I can write 5,000 times the rate. Instead of 9%, we have to use 0.09. We want our rate as a decimal. And then this is my time in years, T. Now this is an equation that we can solve. And we'll solve this equation for T. So the first thing that we'll do is multiply 5,000 times 0.09. Think about that real quick. Try to do that on your own. 5,000 times 0.09. You'll get 450 times T. We still have our variable on the right side. On the left side, we still have 1,350. Now we want to isolate T. To isolate the variable, we'll divide by its coefficient. When we divide 1,350 divided by 450, you get 3. 450 times T divided by 450 would get 1 times T, which is the same as T. So the loan was for 3 years. Here we go. The last example, we're going to find P instead of R or T. So Jenna took out a loan at 9% simple interest rate for 3 years. At the end of that time, she paid $1,350 in interest. How much was her loan? Okay, I'm going to circle the thing with the percent first because I know that has to be the rate. Now, it's a percent, which means I can't use it in my equation yet, so I'm changing 9% to a decimal. Here's the decimal in 9%. To change 9% to a decimal, you divide by 100. That's the same as moving the decimal twice to the left. Get rid of the old one, here's the new one. So the rate as a decimal is 0.09. They also told us that the loan is out for 3 years. And then they gave us a dollar amount, which I know means that has to be I or P. If it's P, then that's what was in my account originally. If it's I, that means that's the amount in interest. This is she paid $1,350 in interest, which means this is I. Now I'm just going to rewrite my equation. I equals P times R times T. And I'm going to replace everything that I know. Instead of I can write 1,350 equals. I don't know what P is, so I will just leave that as the variable. We know that the rate is 0.09. And we know that the time is 3 years. This is in years, so I can use 3. Now I'm just going to solve this equation for P. Solve for P. I'll have 1,350 on the left side. I am not going to multiply P by anything because this is not, it's not a like term. I've got 0.09 and 3 that can be multiplied. That will get us 0.27. Okay. To isolate P, we'd have to divide by its coefficient, which is 0.27. So we'll divide by 0.27 on both sides of the equation. We do that because on the right side, we'll have 1 times P, which is just P. On the left side, we'll have 1,350 divided by 0.27. Try to work that out. And that'll give us 5,000, which means the principal is $5,000. She borrowed $5,000 for her loan. If you have any more questions, feel free to shoot me an email or message me through Schoology. Don't forget to do the quizzes. That is due by Monday at 9 a.m.